Victoria, a hard-working and ambitious university student, has always resisted the lure of fast money and flashy lifestyles. But when Christmas approaches and her friends flaunt luxury funded by wealthy men, she is tempted to join them for the first time. What begins as a quest for a simple wig and glamorous celebration quickly spirals into a nightmare of manipulation, betrayal, and violence. Alone, terrified, and fighting for her life, Victoria must summon every ounce of courage to escape a deadly trap. This is a story of desire, danger, and survival, where one wrong choice almost costs everything, but resilience and strength prevail. Sit back, relax, and find out what happened in this wonderful story. Victoria had always been a different kind of girl. Beautiful, intelligent, and hardworking, she had a plan for her life, and nothing could shake her focus. While her classmates chased fleeting pleasures, Victoria buried herself in books, assignments, and part-time work to fund her modest lifestyle. She didn't believe in fast money, she didn't follow men, and she had no interest in the flashy world of instant wealth. Her room was simple, her wardrobe minimal, yet she was content. To Victoria, dignity and self-reliance were worth more than any designer bag or expensive wig. University life was full of temptations, but Victoria had learned to resist. Her friends often invited her out, flaunting their new outfits and gifts bought by wealthy men, but she remained unmoved. She watched them with a quiet distance, satisfied with her choices. To Victoria, their lifestyle was not her goal. She believed hard work would reward her in the long run. She saved her money carefully, bought her small luxuries when possible, and focused on the things that truly mattered: her education, her ambitions, and her future. But December was different. The air was thick with excitement. The campus was alive with chatter about Christmas parties, new clothes, hairstyles, and grand plans. Victoria noticed how her friends' conversations revolved around who got the biggest gifts, who spent the most, and who looked the hottest. Despite her initial indifference, a small voice inside her began to stir. She felt a twinge of longing as she watched everyone preparing to shut down Christmas, and she realized she had nothing, not even a small treat for herself. For the first time, Victoria felt the pangs of desire that her discipline had never allowed. As December moved closer to Christmas, Victoria felt a strange unease she had never experienced before. Every evening, her roommates would return from outings with bright smiles, expensive wigs, and dazzling clothes, their hands full of goodies. They would proudly show Victoria their latest purchases, laughing and teasing her, "This Christmas will be loud." Massive shutdown. Their words, once harmless, now stung like tiny needles, reminding her of what she did not have. Victoria tried to ignore it at first, convincing herself that she didn't need such extravagance. She repeated her usual mantra: hard work, patience, and discipline. But deep inside, a restless feeling grew. One night, sitting on her bed, Victoria whispered to herself, "Christmas is fast approaching, and I have nothing, not even my favorite wig. No, I cannot be left behind. I must do something. I have to shut down this Christmas." The longing in her voice surprised even her. She realized that for the first time, she was willing to consider things she had once thought beneath her. The next morning, Victoria's thoughts could not be shaken. Every step she took on campus, every laugh from her friends, reminded her of what she lacked. Pride and discipline battled desire in her heart, but desire was growing stronger. She decided she could no longer remain on the sidelines. She needed help, guidance, and someone to show her the way into this dazzling world she had resisted. It was a dangerous thought, but the need to belong, to shine, and to feel the thrill of being admired pulled her toward a path she had never imagined taking. By evening, Victoria had made a decision. She would confide in Susan, her closest roommate, the one who seemed to glide effortlessly through this glamorous life. Perhaps Susan could teach her how to finally have what she had denied herself for so long. A mixture of fear and excitement ran through Victoria as she prepared to take the first step into an unknown, glittering, and perilous world. The following morning, Victoria approached Susan with a pounding heart. Her palms were sweaty, and she felt an unusual mix of fear and excitement. "Babe," Victoria began, her voice trembling slightly, "please, show me the way. I want to be like you girls. I want to shut down this Christmas. Please help your friend." Susan raised an eyebrow, a sly smile forming on her lips. "I thought you were forming holy girl," she said, teasing yet curious. Victoria shook her head firmly. "No, I've changed my mind. I'm ready to do anything now," she admitted. There was a moment of silence as Susan studied her, as if weighing Victoria's seriousness. Then she nodded. "It's fine. I can introduce you to one of my friends who are ready to spend, but you have to offer something in return." Victoria blinked, unsure she had heard correctly. "Something in return? What could that be?" she asked, hesitating. Susan's grin widened. "Your body, of course. Sex. Are you a small child? You use what you have to get what you want. That's the rule of the game," Susan said matter-of-factly. Victoria swallowed hard but found herself whispering, I will try." That night, Susan took Victoria under her wing. She helped her get ready, giving her a revealing outfit, a stylish wig, and expertly applying makeup. "You have to look hot, attractive. Men will only look your way if you catch their eyes," Susan instructed. They arrived at a bustling club, the music pulsating, lights flashing. Susan led Victoria to OG, one of the richest Yahoo boys in the city. Victoria's heart raced as she shook his hand. The glittering world she had resisted so far was now real, and she was stepping into it willingly. Fear, thrill, and desire battled within her, but Victoria knew there was no turning back now. The next day, Victoria's phone buzzed constantly. It was OG. He was charming, smooth, and persistent. Every message dripped with promises of wealth, luxury, and everything Victoria had longed for. "Baby, money is never a problem," he would type. "Just come visit me in my hotel room, and I will spoil you. Wigs, clothes, anything you want, just say the word." Victoria's heart skipped at the thought. Her modest savings could never buy even half of what he promised. Her fingers trembled as she typed back, "Wow. Are you for real?" OG responded almost immediately, assuring her he had enough money to fulfill every desire. That night, Victoria told herself she would go. Just one night, she thought. One night to finally experience what she had denied herself. Her mind swirled with anticipation, fear, and excitement as she prepared, dressing carefully, checking her makeup, and rehearsing her calm smile. When OG arrived, his expensive car gleamed under the streetlights. He greeted Victoria warmly, his charm disarming her nervousness. As they drove to the hotel, Victoria felt a mix of guilt and thrill. This was the world she had long admired from afar, now within her reach. But when they arrived and OG's intentions became clear, fear gripped her like ice. As he leaned in, Victoria's body froze. Panic rose in her chest, her pulse thundering in her ears. She bolted, running out of the hotel room into the cold night, her heart pounding and her mind screaming in shock. The streets blurred past her as adrenaline fueled her escape. Every step she took was frantic. Desperate to put distance between herself and OG that night, the glittering promises of wealth had transformed into terror. Victoria realized, for the first time, how dangerous the world she had stepped into could be. The night was silent except for her own ragged breaths and the pounding of her heart. She had escaped, but the lesson was searing and unforgettable. The next morning, Victoria awoke with her body still trembling from the night before. Her room was quiet, but the memories of her escape weighed heavily on her. Her mind was a storm of fear, regret, and anger at herself for letting curiosity pull her into a dangerous world. Just as she began to breathe easier, Susan barged into the room, her face twisted with anger. "How could you do that to OG?" Susan shouted. "You have to call him and apologize, or everything will be ruined." Victoria swallowed hard, feeling her stomach twist with guilt and anxiety. I was afraid, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Susan's eyes softened slightly, but the urgency remained. It's not just about fear, Victoria. You have to play the game if you want to get what you want. Call him now, she insisted. With trembling hands, Victoria dialed OG's number. Her heart raced as she spoke. "Oh, G, please forgive me. I was afraid. I promised to make it up to you tonight." His calm, smooth voice reassured her, yet she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. That evening, OG arrived once again, this time with a confident smile and the gleam of anticipation in his eyes. Victoria dressed carefully, repeating Susan's instructions in her mind. Look attractive, play the game, get what you want. She forced herself to focus on the goal. The Christmas wig, the clothes, the lavish lifestyle she had long admired. She told herself that one night of discomfort and fear was worth the rewards. As they drove to the hotel, the night seemed darker than before, and an uneasy feeling crept over her. Yet she pushed it aside, telling herself she was ready this time. Little did Victoria know, the danger awaiting her that night would far exceed her imagination. The glamorous promises and flashy wealth masked a sinister plan. Her first step into the world she desired was about to become the most terrifying night of her life. As Victoria entered the hotel room that night, a chill ran down her spine. "Oh." G greeted her warmly, his charm masking the sinister intent she could not yet see. Victoria tried to steady herself, repeating the mantra Susan had drilled into her. "One night, get what I want, it's worth it." She tried to focus on the promised rewards, wigs, clothes, and money, but an uneasy feeling in her gut gnawed at her. No sooner had they settled than OG's plan unfolded. 4 other men emerged from the shadows, their eyes cold and calculating. Victoria's heart leapt into her throat. She realized, too late, that this was no ordinary arrangement. This was a trap. Panic surged through her as OG and the men forced her down. Victoria struggled, screamed, and pleaded, but her strength seemed insignificant against their power. She felt trapped, violated, and terrified. Every thought in her mind screamed for escape, but the room seemed to shrink around her, suffocating her with dread. Adrenaline finally surged through her, fueling a desperate burst of strength. In a moment of sheer courage, Victoria pushed herself free, grabbing whatever she could as she bolted toward the door. The men shouted behind her, their anger and threats slicing through the air, but Victoria didn't look back. She ran through the streets half naked, bleeding, the cold night biting at her skin. Fear and determination propelled her forward, each step a battle against despair. Her lungs burned, her body ached, but she refused to be caught. Finally, she saw the familiar lights of her lodge. Summoning the last of her strength, Victoria made it inside, collapsing at the entrance. Her roommates rushed to her, horror and panic written across their faces as they saw her bloodied, shaking form. Someone called the hospital, and soon she was being treated, her mind replaying every terrifying moment. That night had changed everything. Victoria had tasted danger, betrayal, and cruelty firsthand, but she had survived. Victoria woke up in a hospital bed, her body bandaged and aching, but alive. The fluorescent lights above her seemed almost harsh compared to the darkness of the night she had escaped. Her roommates sat nearby, faces pale with worry, holding her hands and whispering comforting words. She felt a flood of emotions, relief, fear, shame, and anger. The glamour and allure of wealth she had chased now seemed hollow, replaced by the harsh reality of betrayal and danger. The following morning, the police arrived at the hospital to take Victoria's statement. Every word she spoke was heavy with the weight of trauma. She recounted the events in detail: the introductions, the promises, the hotel, and the horrifying attack. Her voice wavered, tears streaking her face, but she spoke with clarity. G and his accomplices had underestimated her will to survive, and now they would face the consequences. The officers promised protection and assured her that justice would be pursued. As she spoke, Victoria realized that her survival was not just a stroke of luck. It was courage, determination, and refusal to give in to fear. Back in her lodge, Victoria sat quietly, reflecting on the events. Her heart still pounded with the memories, but a sense of strength began to emerge. She had faced the darkest night of her life and lived. The lavish lifestyle, the wigs, the money, they no longer held power over her. She understood, now more than ever, the price of temptation and the danger lurking behind false promises. The Christmas she had dreamed of was gone, replaced by a deeper understanding of herself, her limits, and her worth. Victoria knew she had been changed forever, but she also knew she had survived, and that survival was the first step toward reclaiming her life. News of OG and his gang's arrest spread quickly across the campus. Victoria felt a mix of relief and vindication as she listened to the details. The police had caught them red-handed, thanks to the evidence she had provided and her courageous testimony. The fear that had haunted her was now giving way to a quiet sense of justice. But alongside relief, a storm of emotions brewed: anger, disappointment, and a bitter sense of betrayal. Victoria turned to Susan, the friend who had introduced her to this dangerous world. "Why, Susan?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling. Susan avoided her gaze, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. I thought I was helping you, Victoria. I didn't think it would go this far," Susan stammered. Victoria shook her head, tears welling up. "You introduced me to a world I didn't belong in, Susan. You made me believe that money and luxury were worth everything, and I almost lost myself. That's not friendship." For the first time, Victoria realized the true meaning of trust and betrayal. Susan's actions, while perhaps intended as guidance, had led Victoria into a near-fatal trap. She understood that not everyone who smiled at you had your best interests at heart. Yet, despite the anger, Victoria also saw the importance of learning from the ordeal. She vowed never to allow herself to be manipulated again, never to let desire cloud her judgment. The arrests of OG and his gang were just the beginning. The deeper victory was reclaiming her own sense of agency and strength. Victoria's journey through fear, betrayal, and near death had taught her a painful but crucial lesson. Wealth and luxury could never replace self-respect and safety. She resolved to rebuild her life, not with expensive wigs or flashy clothes, but with wisdom, caution, and an unshakable understanding of her own worth. The weeks following the ordeal were a mixture of physical recovery and emotional healing for Victoria. Each day brought small victories: a healed cut, less pain, the ability to walk without trembling. But the true struggle was in her mind. Nights were the hardest, filled with replaying the terrifying events over and over. She often asked herself how her desire for luxury had nearly cost her life. Yet, amidst the fear and regret, a quiet determination began to grow. Victoria knew she could not let this experience define her. She had to reclaim her life, her dignity, and her future. Back at her lodge, Victoria slowly returned to her routine. She resumed her studies with renewed focus, immersing herself in lectures and assignments. Money, luxury, and social status no longer held the same appeal. They had shown her their dark side. Victoria reflected deeply on her ambition, realizing that her drive for success needed to be tempered with wisdom and caution. She began saving diligently again, but this time with a different purpose: to empower herself, not to impress others. The incident had left scars, yes, but it had also instilled a resilience she had never known she possessed. Her friends and classmates noticed the change in her. Victoria no longer envied the flashy lifestyle of her peers. Instead, she quietly excelled in her studies and personal goals. Even Susan seemed different around her, more cautious and reserved. Victoria realized that true strength lay not in wealth or glamour but in the ability to make wise choices, to resist peer pressure, and to stand firm even when life tempted her toward dangerous paths. Slowly, she was rebuilding, Not just her life, but her spirit, stronger and wiser than before. Victoria had begun to see the world differently. The glitter and glamour she once admired now seemed shallow, even dangerous. She understood that not everyone who smiled at her had good intentions, and that desire could cloud even the strongest judgment. Her experience with OG and his gang had taught her that trust was fragile and that true friends guided you toward safety, not peril. Determined to turn her pain into purpose, Victoria started sharing her story cautiously with close friends, warning them of the dangers of reckless decisions and the lure of fast money. She spoke about the trap of valuing wealth over safety, about how a single moment of curiosity could almost cost her life. Her words carried weight because they were lived experiences, raw and honest. Slowly, others began to listen, realizing that the glamorous life they chased could sometimes hide dark realities. Despite everything, Victoria did not allow bitterness to consume her. She still believed in kindness, in hard work, and in pursuing dreams, but now with discernment. She became more intentional in choosing friends and associating with people whose intentions were genuine. Each day, she felt herself growing stronger, more confident, and more aware of the world's complexities. Victoria had been through darkness, but she had emerged wiser, ready to face life's challenges with courage, and determined never to let fleeting desires override her sense of self-worth. By the time the new semester began, Victoria had returned to campus with a renewed sense of purpose. She walked the familiar paths with her head held high, no longer feeling envy toward the flashy lifestyles of her peers. The events of the past December had changed her, instilling a quiet confidence that radiated in her posture, her speech, and her interactions. Victoria realized that her true strength came from knowledge, self-discipline, and resilience, not money or attention. In lectures and study groups, Victoria threw herself into her work with even more determination. She no longer allowed distractions to sway her focus. Fellow students noticed the change. She was more assertive, more thoughtful, and carried an aura of maturity that commanded respect. Even those who had once flaunted wealth began to see her differently, recognizing that true value could not be measured in material possessions. Victoria had learned to prioritize her goals over superficial appearances, and that focus was paying off academically and personally. Outside the classroom, Victoria also approached friendships differently. She became more cautious about whom she trusted, paying attention to actions rather than words. The memory of Susan and the dangers of that night remained a stark reminder, but Victoria used it as a tool for growth. She began mentoring younger students discreetly, sharing advice about staying vigilant and making wise choices without delving into the trauma itself. Through these experiences, Victoria found a renewed sense of purpose. She was not just surviving, she was shaping her life with intention, strength, and wisdom. Victoria often found herself reflecting on her ambitions and the choices she had made. She realized that ambition, when untethered from morality, could lead one into dangerous territory. The glittering world of fast money and flashy lifestyles had nearly destroyed her, teaching her that shortcuts could come at an unbearable cost. Wealth was alluring, but Victoria now understood that it could also hide treachery and danger. Determined to rebuild her life the right way, Victoria set new personal goals. She vowed to achieve success through her intellect, hard work, and integrity. Luxury and status were no longer the measure of her worth, character and resilience were. Slowly, she began saving money responsibly, planning for her future without succumbing to temptation or peer pressure. She also became more mindful of her interactions, carefully discerning who she could trust. This cautious approach didn't dampen her ambitions, it sharpened them. Victoria's dreams were still grand, but now they were grounded in wisdom and self-respect. Her experiences had also made her empathetic. She understood the struggles of students like her who might be tempted by shortcuts or false promises. Victoria quietly offered guidance to those in need, helping them avoid the mistakes she had narrowly escaped. Through these efforts, she realized that true power came not from wealth, but from knowledge, experience, and the ability to navigate life with integrity. Victoria's ambition was no longer reckless. It was measured, purposeful, and deeply rooted in the lessons of her past. Victoria began to take control of her social life with deliberate care. She no longer allowed herself to be swayed by the flashy appearances or empty promises of her peers. Instead, she surrounded herself with people who shared her values, hardworking, honest, and respectful individuals who encouraged her growth rather than tempting her with risky shortcuts. With each careful choice, Victoria felt her confidence and sense of security strengthen. She also became more cautious in casual interactions. She politely distanced herself from friends who prioritized wealth and extravagance over integrity, understanding that peer pressure could be as dangerous as any external threat. Her experiences had taught her that friendship was more than companionship. It required trust, care, and shared principles. Slowly, Victoria's new circle became a support system, a network of genuine friends who valued her for who she was, not for what she could buy or offer. Victoria's peers began to notice her transformation. She carried herself with an air of maturity that was impossible to ignore. Many students who had previously flaunted their wealth now looked up to her as someone who achieved respect and influence without resorting to reckless choices. Victoria quietly embraced this role, offering advice and encouragement where needed, her own story serving as an unspoken warning. With each day, she felt more empowered, more in control, and more certain that the path she had chosen, though challenging, was the right one. Victoria's renewed focus on her studies began to pay off. Her lectures, assignments, and projects reflected a level of dedication that impressed her professors and peers alike. She no longer compared herself to others or envied their material possessions. Instead, she measured her progress by her knowledge, skills, and the steady advancement toward her goals. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced her belief in discipline and perseverance. As the semester progressed, Victoria's academic achievements began to stand out. She earned top marks in challenging courses, and professors recognized her commitment and intellect. Her confidence grew, not from admiration or flashy displays, but from her own hard work and competence. Beyond grades, Victoria found purpose in mentoring younger students, sharing study techniques and advice on avoiding distractions. She became a role model, a living example that diligence, focus, and integrity could bring real success. Through her academic journey, Victoria began to envision a bright future. She dreamed of a career that would bring her satisfaction, financial stability, and respect without compromising her principles. Her past experiences had left scars, but they had also instilled resilience and clarity. Victoria realized that life's true rewards came not from fleeting luxuries or superficial approval, but from dedication, self-respect, and the knowledge that she had navigated her challenges with courage and wisdom. Her vision of success was no longer clouded by temptation. It was rooted in her own strength and moral compass. Temptation and shortcuts may seem enticing, but they can lead to danger and regret. True success comes from patience, hard work, and making wise choices. Value your dignity, protect your integrity, and remember, no amount of wealth or luxury is worth risking your life or self-respect. What's the lesson you learned from this story? Drop it in the comment section because I would like to read them, and guess what? I have another amazing story coming up soon. So subscribe now and join Firelight Tale family so you will be the first to watch it when it drops. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate.